Welcome. This book review episode is about the book Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo. Marie Forleo is an award winning TV show host, #1 New York Times bestseller, and founder of a business school. I think a lot of us know her, at least a lot of us who read, nonfiction, motivational books. But for those who don't, well, that's a little introduction. The genre that we'll be discussing today is self-help or self-development in a non-fiction category. And throughout this review, I will be flipping through my notes, so you might hear the sound of the pages flipping through like that. But let's go ahead and get started. So the book, right? The book starts with a discussion and just storytelling of Marie Folio's mother. It tells us how she looks, how a little bit about her personality and what she believes. Marie's mother is described as being prudent with money and wanting a better life. In fact, one of my favorite quotes from the book, and throughout this review, I'll be giving favorite quotes because I did identify several of them that really stood out to me throughout the book. So you'll be hearing me doing a lot of quoting. But the very first one that I noted was about something Marie's mother said to her, and it reads, "She once told me she really felt valued, loved, or beautiful, but she held tight to the promise she made to herself that once she was old enough, she would find a way to a better life." I mean, don't we all want a better life? But that kind of gives us an insight into Marie Folio's mother and kind of the upbringing Marie Folio had, because she goes on to explain and tell stories about different instances where her mom just, went ahead and figured something out, all towards this goal of achieving a better life. In fact, that phrase, "everything is figureoutable," Marie says in the book, was something her mother often said to her while she was growing up. And in another quote that goes that comes from Marie's mother, she says, "Nothing in life is that complicated. You can do whatever you set your mind to if you just roll up your sleeves and get there and do it." And this came after Marie had been telling us about the surprising things her mom would do, how she fixed things around the house. I mean, you just really need to read the book and hear the stories for yourself. They will make you laugh, they will make you really connect to her mom and help you really understand Marie's upbringing. Everything is figureoutable, even if you have tried over and over again. That is the premise that is echoed throughout the book. So it says everything is figureoutable, even if you failed or you are starting from scratch, even with loss, mental illness, or a life-threatening illness. Life is figureoutable. And I think that is such a profound, powerful philosophy to have. And I think this book really helps people transform their mindset to really seeing that perspective and starting to agree with that perspective, which I think is a really incredible thing. I love that about the book. Marie in this book challenges readers to be daring. This is one of those books you start reading and you just don't want to put down. And I love books like this. They are very captivating with everything from personal stories, a little bit of history, Marie's upbringing, challenges she faced, with a lot of humor. And it's just an amazing book. In the book, Marie identifies destructive thoughts that might be hindering mental growth. Another one of my favorite quotes coming where she says, "You will never grow beyond your current circumstances if you're closed up to everything except what you currently know." And I really like that because she says this, I think in the second chapter, and she challenges readers early in the book to open up their minds to at least considering this idea, to at least testing this idea before they throw it out and say, "I already knew that. This is pretty straightforward. This is easy." And I dare say, I would also encourage readers to go ahead and challenge themselves. For those interested in reading this book, which I highly recommend, if you feel like you are in a slump, you need to pick yourself up, you can find motivation in life to get things done, or you're just feeling you feel like your situation is dire and you just don't see a way out. I think this is kind of, if you do have the time anyway, this is kind of a good read a good book to go through and really take some things from. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. I'll talk about the testimonies that she shared in the book, real life testimonies of people. And Marie goes on to say the only things that are not figureoutable are facts of life or nature, like death. Like we can't possibly figure out how to bring someone back, I mean, science has gone a long way, but there are still things that are just facts of nature that we cannot do much about. But otherwise, everything else is figureoutable. And if it's not a fact of nature and you still can't figure it out, she says it's probably because you don't care enough about it to want to figure it out. The book does not tell you what to do, but shows you how to figure out what to do for your own individual need, if that makes sense. Okay, so she has a lot of field notes throughout the book, and there are collections of testimonies from people who have applied concept from Marie's principle of everything is figureoutable to their lives. I mean, they talk about situations where of illness, of loss, of poverty, of a loved one dying, having a few weeks to live, and how they were able to figure things out. Some of them had last minute opportunities to figure them out. So those testimonies alone, I think, are very powerful. They are written in a very concise way, but they are scattered all through the book, which help to drive the point home. So they are so worth the read if you're just looking for inspiration. That would be an awesome the testimonies would be an awesome place to start. With every point that Marie makes in the book, she begins the point by sharing her own personal story for reference, and this happens throughout the entire book. So she talks about her life, she talks about her parents, she talks about the workplace, she even talks about challenges she encountered in different workplaces and different stages of her life. She focuses on the power of our mind, and that is a big one throughout the book, the power of our mind, right? Because this principle of everything is figureoutable takes a total mindset transformation. She presents our minds and thoughts as very dynamic things that we have a choice in changing. She gave us a model that kind of begins with belief, flows to thought, and then feeling, and then behavior, and then result. So belief, thought, feeling, behavior, results. And she kind of has arrows pointing to show the flow of progression, how our beliefs can eventually become the results that we experience in our lives. She discusses how beliefs we have acquired through socialization in any human society affects our feelings of stability, safety, and confidence and success and things like that. She constantly says beliefs are a choice. So she definitely has this perspective that we have the power to change things, and she argues her point based on the experiences of people that she has helped, based on their testimonies, based on her own life, the different stages of her life. And she's very detailed in telling these stories, you guys. She talks specifically about co-workers and things like that, and she also talks specifically about her mother and her father and the role they played in kind of shaping her belief, and the example she saw through their lives, through the decisions they made, and how that turned out to affect them and also her. The book, one thing I love about the book is that it has some reflective activity that readers are encouraged to complete with a pen and a journal. And she's very adamant about that. She says, you should use a pen and a journal. There's just magic when you write things down compared to if you type them, on a phone or on a computer. So I definitely give the book an A for engagement. So as you go through the chapters, you have tasks to complete. And of course, since I was reviewing this book, I decided why not complete some of these, and I did. They are pretty incredible. They are pretty amazing. I should say, if you're someone who has read a lot of self-help books, so you've read books like, John Maxwell's books and things like that, some of those concepts you might be familiar with, but there is a lot of new information. I mean, at the end of the day, finding similarities between what you learn here and things you've learned before is not necessarily a bad thing, right? You want those similarities that help you enforce these ideas and these beliefs that Marie kind of argues are can be shaped and transformed and based on our choice. And she actually did that in her life as well. She talks about how she did that and transformed her mindset in that regard. The book is about taking responsibility for your life. If you haven't gathered that already from what I've been saying, then I will say that clearly now. Realizing you have more of a choice than you may realize. So that is kind of what she's arguing for. She's saying you're stronger than you think. It doesn't matter what mental illness you have, what physical ailment you have. You may not be able to change everything, but you can figure this out. There are things you can figure out, and she dares you to try to figure them out. It's just an all-around amazing book. In case you haven't noticed, my reviews for this book are glaring. I love them. I love this book so much. I think it's going to be a wonderful resource for most people to have in their library, most people to go over from time to time. It's a book you sometimes want to refer back to, because those reflective activities she has, they have questions that really made me think. They really made me think. One of them led to another one of my favorite quotes, which will be the last quote for this review. But it said, "It's not about having time, it's about making time." And if I'm to be honest, in my life, everything I have accomplished that is worthwhile has been something that I made time for and gave effort and dedicated my time to, and also believed that I could achieve. So I definitely agree with that. So just to kind of conclude, overall, this book feels very coherent. It leads you from one concept to another, so the flow is very good. In terms of critique, if I was to say anything about the book, I would say, well, one thing is, one of my critique is kind of an obvious one for anyone who reads the book, and one is more so my bias as an academic. So the first one is that she says the book is for people ages 6 to 86 years old, that it's basically for everyone. But I mean, she curses throughout the book. So if that's not your flavor, you might not like the book. You will see a lot of curse words, all sorts of curse words, the whole spectrum of them. No offensive words, but definitely some curse words. And you might hate the book for that. I did not mind. It did not bother me. Besides, she starts the book by explaining how she probably got that from her mom, because her mom, cursed a lot, like a truck driver. I think that was the exact metaphor she used. But so that is one thing. So you might be, if you're deciding to buy this for, a child, you might want to rethink that, be mindful. Hopefully at some point people start, making books that are really helpful, but the kids version of that. And we've seen that so many times. At the top of my head, I just remember that back when I was a teenager, I remember there was 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I read. And then there was also Highly Effective Habits for teenagers. So something like that would be really awesome. It would be nice to see another version of this book that would cater to younger folks, and of course, like I said, if the cursing doesn't bother you, it is all good. Now the second critique I have is because of my bias as an academic. So usually when I read a book, and this happens all the time, and I might even have been guilty of saying it in a joke or something like that, of saying, school teaches us nothing. I think that is a false statement, and I don't think that is something that authors should be putting in a book. I guess it kind of depends on the schools you went to, but I think the academic system is set up in such a way that it teaches us a spectrum of skill sets, and from literacy to critical thinking. And I think if you did not go to school, you probably won't be able to write a book like this. There are so many things you wouldn't be able to do if you did not go to school. You can read and you can write, right? And you can think. In your life throughout your school experience, you must admit there were times when you had to solve problems, right? There were times when you had to think outside the box. There were times when you had to read a task, comprehend it, and deliver answers. So I think regardless of whichever school people went to, I think you get something from it. It's just like a book. Even if you read a book that's not good, and this book is amazing, but even if you read a book that's not good, I feel like you learn something. You learn something. You're always learning, and I think school teaches us a lot. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. That really doesn't tie into the book, and it's not like that was something she focused on. It was just a statement I caught, and it's an area of sensitivity for me because I think as academics, at least in the schools I've worked at and the ones I went to, we work so hard to make sure we're equipping students for this world and the life they'll have afterwards. And I know that the system in academia has changed so much over the decades. We've gone from lecture style to more engaging style, but we're always trying to cater to the new audiences. We travel to conferences, and I know not every faculty or academic or scholar does this, but I think there are a lot of people trying really hard to make learning better, to improve things. So maybe people who did not get anything from school probably just didn't take the right classes, or probably just didn't go to a good school. And Marie says here, I mean, at some point, parts of the book, she kind of proudly mentions the schools that she went to. So it's not like she's bashing. Like I said, this one is just an area of sensitivity for me. I always catch that one line that says, you don't really learn much from school, and I'm like, whoa, let's backtrack. But like I said, that is a conversation for another day. And that brings me to the end of this book review. I hope you loved it. There'll be another one coming next month, so all the best. Again, I highly recommend this book. It is an amazing one. See you guys next time. Bye bye.